Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Today, we again have four new decks for you to talk about. We're also going to cover some of my favorite Infinite Conquest decks so far this season, decks that have already won Infinite Borders, so you know that they're proven. We've got a bunch of thoughts from some of the best players in all of Marvel Snap about Sasquatch, the brand new card. But before we get started, I want to tell you, you can win one of 5 season passes on this video. All you have to do is sub, like, and comment. I'm not going to tell you what the comment is right now, honestly, because I don't plan it at the start of the video. Something always comes up in the course of the video where I want to ask my viewers something. You answer that thing, and you get a chance to win a season pass. Yesterday was a nice simple, what variant did you get from the premium mystery variant, and a million people answered. So please try to win a season pass if you're so inclined. You can win Gilgamesh with this giveaway. The giveaway will take place next Tuesday, so we'll get it to you nice and early in the season. In addition, if you'd like some gameplay for these decks, you should check out the stream team. The following players, today is Thursday, so ZalSnap at 6 p.m. Eastern will be streaming these decks over on Twitch. You can find Zal's Twitch linked in the description of this video. If you can't make Zal's Twitch stream, well, that's fine. In the morning, Zal will have a video, tomorrow morning, Zal will have a video with at least one of these decks that he found most interesting. Tomorrow will be Tuccrr, and if you want to check this morning out, you gotta show some love to GamingwithFlashX, one of my favorite content creators in all of Marvel Snap, should have a video live with the decks that he played for today. Well, today as of recording, yesterday, I guess. Our first deck is Eeka, that should be Eeka Squanch, but I wrote Eeka Squanch, so now it is Eeka Squanch. I have spoken. This is a really, really powerful deck. I don't know how else to put it. I played this one a little bit. I'm avoiding ladder and dropping like a rock because, God, that hot location sucks for the last week of the season. But this deck is incredibly, incredibly strong and incredibly, incredibly versatile. It has a million plays. It has answers to a ton of the meta. The best thing you can do against Hella decks right now is usually Professor X Cannonball shenanigans, so this has that play. This also has the ability to beat other Professor X Cannonball decks because you have the card Echo to go with your Professor X and Cannonball, and like that's so strong. If you're facing a lot of Sasquatch decks, guess what? Mobius does a great job answering them, making them play fair so you can beat those decks too. This deck will have a problem with the opposing bounce deck from time to time, but that's a small price to play for having a really strong answer into the rest of the meta. You can find Eeka at twitter.com/Eeka's show. Excuse me, Eeka, Eeka with an S _ show. Eeka is one of the best deck builders in the game. His decks constantly get people to infinite and then into high infinite. He's been in the top 100 many a time. This is a player you should be following in Marvel Snap. Nebula, Echo, and Nico can be Sunspot, Nightcrawler, Iceman. You may want to make sure that you keep 3 1s. You're changing your matchup spread by changing what 1s you run, but you want 1s for Pixie. Pixie is the secret sauce for why this decks work. Without her, you can go Angela, Kitty, and Hope, and then you would play Hope over Nocturne. However, that's a different deck, and we're going to talk about that deck before the end of the video when we get to our Conquest section. Sasquatch can be sort of any big 4, because that's usually when you end up playing Sasquatch. We're talking Cull or Crossbones here. Sasquatch is great with Pixie. If Sasquatch is any cheaper with Pixie, it's extraordinarily easy to make it a 0. We've seen this in the past with cards like She-Hulk. It works just as well with Sasquatch. White Widow can be Lizard. What I really like White Widow for is I like White Widow kind of specifically in decks that run Nebula, because putting a Widow in one lane and a Nebula in another is really powerful. Mobius can be Rogue. It's really bad. You want Mobius pretty badly right now. Sasquatch is coming around into the meta. People are playing it, even if it's not the highest win rate thing right now. So you're going to need Mobius, and you do need Ms. Marvel, Cannonball, and Jeff altogether. You can maybe try Omega Red for Ms. Marvel, but I wouldn't suggest it. Cannonball is like the deck right now. And Jeff, if you're running Professor X in a Professor X meta, you need Jeff. Jeff is one of the most important cards in Marvel Snap. It's always one of the best. Now it's one of the most important too. Alright, so turn 1, you want to play Nebula over Echo as a general rule. You want to get Nebula down on 1. She's not great anytime really after turn 1. Turn 2, Pixie is better than Widow, and you want to play Widow in a different lane than Nebula if you can, and that's better than Jeff. Mobius is better than Nocturne on turn 3 right now. It's better safe in dropping Mobius. Plus, if your opponent Magic's on 3, you can play your Nocturne elsewhere and choose to play the Limbo Mind Game. Turn 4 is Ms. Marvel or Sasquatch. If you've played two things, if you didn't have Mobius or Nocturne, and you ended up playing, a thing that I did a couple times is on turn 3, I did either Pixie and then turn Pixie into Demon, or Pixie and turn Pixie into Draw 2. If you do that, and you have Sasquatch, Sasquatch is a great turn 4 play. Ms. Marvel is perfectly fine. Turn 5, you would very much like to Professor X. You're also fine with Ms. Marvel or Sasquatch. And if you played Ms. Marvel on 4, you can Sasquatch on fine just 5. And at that point, your last play is probably Cannonball. This is, again, a really strong, really cool deck that I urge you to check out. I'm aware that it's expensive. Today is going to be kind of an expensive day, friends. Fair warning, we're doing 2 Sasquatch decks and 2 non-Sasquatch decks. And, well, they've released so many good cards in this past year since January that, like, it's really hard to not play an absolute ton of fairly expensive cards. Literally, I think Professor X is the only low series card in this deck. That's absurd. They need to do something about this. I'm gonna actually literally make this complaint internally at Second Dinner, because yikes. All right, please hit that sub button, hit like, hit comment. We bring you 7 days of video a week, 6 days of deck videos with at least 3 new decks every single day. We bring you more decks for the new card, more decks for the OTA, the patch. We have top of the meta decks, top ladder players send me decks all the time. I know almost all the top ladder players at this time. Many of them watch. Hi to those of you who are. If you want to stay at the cutting edge of the Marvel Snap meta, this is the place for you. Hit that sub button. And for those of you who are subbed, like, comment. You'll have a chance for the giveaway, for the comment, and the like if you're subbed. But also, watch as long as you can. It really does help us out with the video. Next up is another stupidly expensive deck. This is Galactus Ultron. This deck looks like it is the stupidest, non-workingest thing in the world. It is a Galactus deck, a null deck. I mean, I guess if it were any one thing, it would be a null death deck. But this deck has a million stupid plays. This is one of the most fun decks in the game. It was shared by the biggest creator in all of Marvel Snap as a meme. This deck is not a meme. It is rolling in Infinite Conquest. So it came from Reddit. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Reddit has a Marvel Snap competitive, and that is reddit.com/MarvelSnapComp, and the user is Louis914. So hopefully Louis is from Westchester. That's what 914 means. That would be pretty cool. If you are from Westchester, Louis, let me know. We'll do an interview thing. Reply in the comments. But this came from Reddit. Regis Kilbin found it there. The great Regis Kilbin, the biggest player in Marvel Snap, and one of the kindest. Someone who is amazing, amazing, amazing at deck building, deck credits. But when Regis creates a deck, and I love Regis, Regis's decks are purposefully often meanie. So people like the competitive meta doesn't always pay the most attention to Regis. I think Regis shared this as a meme, but it's really good. And so KX4N is one of the top 30 players on Marvel Snap. Sits near the top of the Infinite leaderboard. You can find KX4N. He just started streaming. Incredibly nice person at twitch.tv/KX4N. Do me a favor, go check him out and say Glazer sent you. KX4N is great. KX4N rolled with this in an Infinite Conquest and got an Infinity Border. Then our friend Looping Moon, who's a member of our Snap Judgments League Discord and a great person, hey Moon, played this, went 18-2 in Conquest with an Infinity Border. So, like, this is legit. I like this way better for Conquest. I think this is one of the very best, if not the very best thing to be doing in Infinite Conquest right now. It has a really hard matchup to destroy, and the lockdown is 50-50-ish, but everything is 50-50-ish with lockdown. Unfortunately, you need every card here. I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so play line is basically X23 on 1 or 2, and if you don't see it, then you're fine. Turn 3, you would really like to wave or Electro. If you wave, the first play line is wave, Ultron, Killmonger, Null and Death. You can also go wave, Death, Venom, Null. Or you can go Electro into Blink, into Destroyer, into Null. Or you can make just 10 million little plays like that, where you're just combining the most expensive and powerful cards in the game to huge and insane benefit. Your, like, worst case scenario is fairly often you'll just go like X23, Electro, Venom, and you're like, oh, okay, well, now I have 6 energy on turn 5 again, or 7 energy technically on turn 5, and we should be fine. Yeah, there's a lot to like here. I don't know what else to say. If you've got anything that doubles your cards, like if you've got Sinister London or any card like that, you win. Ultron on turn 6 just steals cubes. People will be like, oh, they can only play one big thing in one lane. Nope, you drop those 8 power Ultron bots. It ends up being 8 power if the lane was empty, or if you have a wave in that lane, that becomes 7, 9, 11 power, right? Like, that just steals lanes sometimes. If lanes are hard to reach, that Ultron can win them. There's a ton to like here. You get to sneak through Galactuses, and then just, if they don't have Shang, and Shang is not all over the meta, drop Death and Null. Or if you have priority, drop Goliath and say, screw you. There's just a bajillion ways to win. This deck is completely wild. Sorry, one last look at it, because, like, we're not going to move on from that. Check out this deck. Props to Louis914, then again to Regis, the great Regis, Kilbin, then into KX4N and Looping Moon. Looping Moon, like, yelled at me about this deck yesterday. It was like, feature it. So, here we are. All right, so top player thoughts on Sasquatch. I'm going to tell you, I didn't actually get a specific quote, but Woody did not like this card, did not think it was very good. KM seemed disappointed in it, but that was an early conversation. Like a million top players hang out in Woody stream, so a good place to go to get the feel for things is Yo Woody MJ stream, if you want to know what top players think of things. There's like a whole group of them, but Woody is the largest of them. Flying Gnome, our friend Gnome Plays, is one. Husky Puppies, etc. So, Shuri Enjoyer, the great Shuri Enjoyer, Brazilian player, phenomenal player. Good in bounce, people are playing it wrong, and it isn't a priority to get. I think that's interesting. When I asked him what he meant by people are playing it wrong, he was like, they're just trying to make it 0 too much. It shouldn't be 0. You play it as tempo early and force your opponent to answer it. And if they're using their Shang there, you're fine. Good to know. Thank you. All right, Lambie, the GOAT. Impressed, but needs Mysterio and often Mockingbird. That makes sense to me. So if you're playing it with Mysterio but not Mockingbird, you're playing Bounce, right? So if you like Bounce, I don't know if it's the best Bounce deck, but if you like Bounce, this is probably looking worth it. Is it as good as Sage and Bounce? I don't actually think so. But if you want to play it without Mockingbird, you need Bounce. If you have Mockingbird, you're going to see Mockingbird come up a lot. I think Mockingbird makes it sort of worth it. But without Mockingbird, Geo says totally insane, and people aren't appreciating her. Geo is another phenomenal player. I think Geo is the best in-game player in all of Marvel Snap right now. If you're not aware, he won the he was been first in like a bajillion things and ended up winning our Snap Grand Prix. He's just an unbelievable player. But he's also an unbelievable bounce player and has been playing her in bounce. We're going to take a look at that very bounce deck of Geo in a few minutes. So make sure you check that out. Geo considers Sasquatch completely nuts in that deck, which is really, really reasonable, right? That's if you can get this card down on turn 5 and you're like playing and bouncing a bunch of cards on turn 4, what ends up happening, turn 5 or turn 6, what ends up happening is it's really hard to Professor X you, and that answer is a huge part of the meta. Avazord, the great Ava, top 5 player in Marvel Snap, another Brazilian player, says that it's very strong in several archetypes, worth opening, and 4 or 6,000 tokens. I asked why, and it was just because most decks are perfectly happy with the 5 or 410, but you can get it down often enough to make it worth it. And it fundamentally, and I think this is what's really starting to convince me, it is creating a package in the game. I think Marvel Snap has often, when it's at its best, been a game of packages, and I think Mysterio, Sasquatch, Mockingbird are a package. W says it seems good, not oppressive, worse than Mockingbird. Again, agreed. I think Mockingbird is straight up a better card. We don't run Mockingbird and Bounce, but like this card is making me go, are we sure that's right? Like, are we sure we shouldn't just be throwing Mockingbird into Bounce? I know we don't have, like, we play a lot of cards, so it's easier to make this cheap, but if we can fairly often do the Mysterio thing earlier on turn 5 with Hitmonkey, in turn 6 of Mockingbird and Sage, or Sasquatch and Sage, seems really strong. So that's an interesting take. I'm really curious here. Tanjo says it's very strong and should be even stronger in coming weeks, which makes sense because everyone's playing the crap out of it this week. It will be less played with time. Cards are always less played than, or almost always less played than the first week when everyone's crazy about them and we go get them. So Tanjo says it should be stronger in coming weeks, which will mean we see less Mobius, we see less direct counters, so on and so forth. Another Tanjo is like the number 2 or 3 ranked player in Marvel Snap again right now. Hey Tanjo. Batman 99, another phenomenal player, says solid addition to the Mockingbird package. And again, that package note is what really is convincing me on this card. This card is very, like, they've done an amazing job of releasing borderline cards. cards you want, right? They've done an amazing job. Every single card this month released, including frickin' Namora, is a card that you want, a card that goes in decks. Sasquatch is better than Namora. Is Sasquatch better than Sage? Maybe. In some Mockingbird packages, sure. In Bounce, no, I think Sage is still better. It's close. Is Sasquatch better than Nocturne? I mean, Sasquatch helps make decks. Nocturne goes in like 3/4 of the decks in the game. I have no idea. Is Sasquatch better than Blink? What's it for right now? I've got a really, really, really cool Blink deck to show you tomorrow. This is very complicated because all these cards are really great and they're about the same tier. Miley says, good, not broken, a worse Mockingbird. Again, it's fairly consensus that this is worse than Mockingbird in everything but bounce. If the meta has less Mobius, this is going to be great. And Spyro, the great Spyro, says specifically, this is worth it if you need Ravonna Renslayer. If you're looking for Ravonna Renslayer, then you should absolutely get this because you absolutely want Ravonna. Again, we're going to take a look at, much like that deck we talked about that at the start of the video where I told you we'd need specific cards, where we'd need Cannonball and so on, that deck is also going to need Ravonna. So, given that that's the case, if you need Ravonna, I think you're relatively safe just opening for Sasquatch, as long as you have Mockingbird. Because Sasquatch, Mockingbird, Mysterio is going to be a package that goes into a ton of decks. You're going to be sad if you don't have it. And you're also going to be sad because you're going to be missing Ravonna, because Ravonna also goes in an absolute ton of decks. Does that make sense for everybody? All right. Tomorrow, I'll give you my initial impressions, but I sort of just did. So if you were paying attention, hopefully you got that. What I'd like you to comment for me today is, 1, did you get Sasquatch? 2, based on judging on the meta, how does it rank with this month's cards? We had it number 1 because it's a big stat stick, but it turns out Sage is a stat stick. Nocturne is slightly grown up Jeff, right? And Blink is fair Lockjaw. Is Sasquatch on the level with those? Where do you think this card lands? I'm especially interested in those of you who have it, but I'm also curious those of you who don't. How has this fared against you? How good do you think it is? W noted that it did not seem especially good against him. W's not playing it, W's playing against him, but W plays a lot of lockdowny stuff that does not give you space to play, and so he's going to be really strong against Sasquatch, so that's going to color his opinion, while .Geo is playing a ton of bounce and thinks that Sasquatch is amazing. You see what I mean? So let me know what you think. That's how you win the season pass for this video. Next up, we have the .Geo bounce that I promised you we'd talk about. This is our friend .Geo's deck. He sent it to me, and in 4 games, I lost 16 cubes immediately. Great. Why am I sharing this deck? Because then I took it onto Ladder and immediately won an infinite ticket. Sorry, onto Conquest and immediately won an infinite ticket. I also, with a different version of bounce, won my league game yesterday. So my bounce win rate on Infinite Ladder isn't amazing. So I messaged Lambie and I messaged Geo. Geo didn't get back to me yet because, well, honestly, I don't know if he wants his life out there. But he didn't super duper sleep last night, so he's probably out cold. Hi, Geo. Let me know if you're watching. All right. So I messaged Lambie and Lambie got back to me basically immediately. I was like, hey, I'm 3-1 in the tournament, but I should be 4-0 because I didn't play bounce in the match I lost, and then we immediately did a bounce rematch with our friend Flash, and I won with bounce. And then I'm dominating in Conquest with bounce. Why am I so able to dominate everything with bounce in Conquest, or tournaments, and it's so much more difficult Ladder? And Lambie's answer is it's a question of knowing how tall things are capable of getting relatively quickly in Conquest. After the first game or two, you know how big things can get, and thus you know how to allocate your power in order to compete. Versus in Ladder, where by the time you know that, the game is over and you have potentially lost 2 to 4 cubes. And I think that's really interesting. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I'm not saying Lambie's wrong. I want to gather a plurality of really great bounce players' opinions before I go that far with it. However, I dominated with this in Conquest. There's some things to talk about, though. You can find Geo, by the way, at twitter.com/.geo. If you know Italian, his friend Googly, our friend Googly, hey Googly, made a video talking to Geo, coaching how to play bounce. If you don't know Italian, though, I can't help you. I don't know Italian either. Sasquatch, Elsa, and Hitmonkey can be Sage, Mockingbird, US Agent, and maybe even Iron Man. So mix and match. Those are the cards that go in and out of the deck. Kitty is required. You need Kitty for every non-Werewolf Bounce deck. Straight up, I don't like Werewolf Bounce. I don't think Werewolf Bounce is good right now. Too much lockdown. Nico is awesome. Excuse me. Nico is awesome, and it's really hard to play Hood if you don't have her. So I think Nico is like the exact borderline of required. Feel free to change it for another card as necessary. We're looking at something like Korg without her, or even Elektra, Rocket Raccoon, Hawkeye. Iceman could also be any of these cards. If you're seeing a lot of Black Knight, I know certain pockets of the meta are very Black Knight filled. Make either Iceman or Nico be Elektra, and you will be fine. If you just want some extra power, you feel like you need some extra power, Rocket and Hawkeye are perfectly fine. So Geo says don't play this without Falcon. That is literally his advice, both on Twitter and to me personally. It was like, play Falcon Bounce. And here's an important thing. So when you have Bast, but not Falcon, which is what the Spyro/Cambest, Spyro made it, and then Cambest, literally the same time I did, which is ridiculously obnoxious, at Geo's suggestion, changed White Widow for Nico in the deck, and the logic for that is, if you've got Hood, you want 3 ways to get rid of Hood, right? So Bast, Nico. All right, Beast, Bast, Nico. That's 3, right? Perfectly fine. Falcon is 4. So you only need 3 of those. You don't need all 4. You might notice you can't run Bast if you're running Sasquatch, though. So now we have a problem. Now we start to need Falcon. That's obnoxious, because you know what card's missing here? Sage, and I'm not completely convinced Sage is better than Sasquatch for this type of deck. Now, other important point that's worth knowing. How do I put this? Other important point that's worth knowing. A bunch of people didn't listen to this and didn't care, right? There's not like 1,000 games of this, but there's a solid 60 or so. And the version that replaces Falcon with Sage ends up with a higher win rate than the version that has Falcon. Sorry, yeah, the version that has Falcon and no Sage. So I don't know what to do with that information. I think we need a larger sample. And I bet you, dear viewers, especially those who are good at Bounce, can help us get that sample. All right, so turn 1, you play a 1 alone. Turn 2, you play Angela, or 2 1s. Turn 3 is Bishop, and Bishop I generally prefer to Elsa. Turn 4 is 2 1s and 2 1s and Beast is generally better than a 3. And the reason you want to do that is because your turn 5 is intended to be Mysterio, Zeros, and Hitmonkey. Obviously, if they played Mobius, that changes your plans here. Then one of your 3s and a 1 would be better. You're still going to Mysterio, Hitmonkey very likely on 5, and then you would just Sasquatch on 6, but your goal is to play a Demon or 2 and Sasquatch on 6. Would that make sense for everybody? If you can play the Hitmonkey Mysterio combo on 5 with a couple zeros and make yourself a nice like 12, 14 power Hitmonkey, get that 4 power Mysterio, 16 power there, and then you end up playing like a 22 power, let's say 2 demons and a Sasquatch on turn 6, you win, right? Once I was able to start getting that going, it ended up working really well. Mobius is very annoying for this list, but it is still perfectly capable of winning without that. Again, your win conditions in Bounce are traditionally Hitmonkey and demons, right? Angela and Bishop are nice. They're facilitators, not winners. Angela and Bishop help facilitate victories. Sasquatch might be a 3rd win condition. It's early for me to really, really know that. That makes sense for everybody? Hopefully it does. I love this list. You're going to keep getting bounce lists from me. Sorry, it's my favorite thing in the game. I think it's the most fun thing in the world. This is totally unplayable until that stupid hot location goes away. I want to do a short, but it's getting really late. So before we talk about Infinity Conquest, if you're struggling with that hot location, throw Quake in your deck. Cool. Just run Quake. You can run Legion if you really want to. Legion's fine. Legion turning everything into that or making that not be a thing is very strong. But Quake is completely freaking hilarious. So consider Quake. So, Infinity Conquest. Outside of the big bad list from the beginning, which is an amazing Conquest deck, and the bounce list, which is an amazing Conquest deck, here's some stuff before we get to our last full deck guide. Our last full deck guide is a top 20 deck that came out of nowhere. It's a really good meta answer and a huge surprise. You can check, You can check Monday's Lamby Open video. We covered Lamby's giant tournament that had a ton of top players in it this weekend in Monday's video. And in that coverage, I don't know if this is like, In that coverage, I explained how to play like 6 different top decks. Top tournament decks are fundamentally the same concept as top Conquest decks. I think an important thing about the difference between Conquest and Ladder, and this is a question I'm asked constantly, I need to just make a video about it, is what's the difference between a Conquest and Ladder deck? I think all Ladder decks can be played on Conquest, but I don't think all Conquest decks can be played on Ladder effectively. I think, and this is an opinion I'm forming based on listening to Lambie and Geo and so on, and all these top players, right? Some good Conquest decks that don't work as well on Ladder are decks that have lower win rates but lose fewer cubes. They have lower win rates because they need to figure out which outs they're playing to. Once these decks, like Bounce, like Ongoing Tribunal, know what outs they're playing to, they can be effective even against hard counters. On Ladder, you have no idea if those counters happen, so when you're countered, you're losing a lot of cubes. Given that each ladder is an equal sum game, that's not great. But in Conquest, who cares? You just, unless the opponent is really good at hiding their stuff, you do a little bob and weave, duck and move to figure things out. Every season, things like Ongoing Tribunal and Hela and that all the Hulk's Evolutionary deck are great Infinite Conquest decks. I'm not covering those. You should know those decks if you're here. If you don't know those decks, do me a favor. In the description of this video, Snap Judgments League Discord, hop on. There's a million people that will help you out with those. Those are the bog standard list of the game. I try my best not to cover these decks over and over again. All right. I'm going to get myself in trouble. Everybody ready for me to get myself in trouble? Get excited. Rub your hands together. I hope TLSG shared basically this list yesterday. Safety's been playing this list for 2 months. It has thousands of games. It is entirely possible TLSG made the exact same deck himself and just threw Sasquatch in. But it doesn't feel right to me, and it made me a little sad. I'm just going to leave that out there. I don't have, like, a big thing, but this is, like, I saw all over Twitter yesterday, people going, TLSG's deck got me XYZ, infinity border, gold ticket, infinite tickets, so on and so forth. Safety Blade isn't small. He has 10,000 followers on Twitter. Safety has been playing this deck. I went to look for how long he's been playing this deck. I mean, I guess I could ask him. We spoke for like an hour earlier. But I went over to his Twitter and I was like, how long has this deck been public? And I got back to April 7th. A month and a half ago before I got bored, or almost exactly 2 months ago before I got bored looking. And yeah, I mean, I hope TLSG just came up with the same thing and didn't just like not credit, because TLSG, well, Safety has 10,000, TLSG has 40,000. And my basic MO, and people are going to yell at me in the comments, have fun, yell at me, I don't care. My basic MO, the reason I spend so much time on deck credits every day, is it is my belief that if you have the ability to help others, you don't have to, you're not required to, but it is always better to try and reach out and help others. Cool. So Safety Blade made this Slayer Blade list. It is dominating Conquest. It's also dominating Ladder. This is one of the best decks in the game. You've probably played against this list or a version of it. If you didn't see Havoc in it, you saw Wolfsbane in it. They also sometimes run Enchantress. Older versions ran Green Goblin or Morph. Cool. The deck has shifted a ton as new cards keep coming out, as the meta keeps shifting. What it basically does is it uses the Kitty Angela package to generate early power and early energy with Hope to lead into hopefully Professor X Cannonball, but you can still win without that because you have multiple tech pieces. You have Red Guardian or Enchantress, you have Sage for extra power, you have Reach with Jeff and Nocturne, so on and so forth. And your stuff is cheaper because Ravona's in the deck. Havoc on Hope Summers, there's not even a downside. You just get an extra 1/8 if you've got Ravona out. It's absurd. This deck is genuinely one of the very best decks in Marvel Snap, and one of the things that you should most play in Infinite Conquest. Next up, we have Sizer's main Loki. This has already won an Infinity ticket. The change to make right now is probably dangerous, right? Red Guardian would make sense as a change for Shadow King. You can also strongly, Mobius is a must, right? You can also strongly consider changing a different card. It might have to be Double Dino for Enchantress, because you don't want to get blown out by like the whatchamacallit. So 2 decks that are always on the Infinite Conquest are the Tribunal nonsense and Destroy, and Shadow King helps you beat Destroy. Shadow King and Cosmo give you a good matchup to Destroy, right? And then Enchantress can blow out, and if you can blow it out for enough cubes, you're just done and you won those Tribunal decks. So if you have those plays, you're good to go. All right, next up, we have Akame's Hawk Bounce. This is really cool. I think Darkhawk is always good in Infinite Conquest because sometimes they just draw rocks and you win. Akame is a player I was screwing around on the Marvel Snap competitive because I felt like, hey, why am I limiting myself and where I look for things, right? This is a player who got an infinite border with this really cool Darkhawk list. Serious thought, no one's going to expect any of this shit. This is so far outside of the meta. That's why I'm featuring this. This is so far outside of what people would expect, particularly the Valkyrie, right? The rest is a regular deck. But if you play this, the opponents will have a hard time figuring out what you're doing. Valkyrie should be really, really strong against cannonball-related bullshit as a general rule, especially if you're dropping a demon after it. This list seems genuinely stellar, and I think you should try it out. It has some real legs for Conquest in particular, because Valkyrie as a surprise card is huge. And finally, Husky's like the number 3 or 4 ranked player in Marvel Snap right now with his Hella list. Go check out Cam Best's channel. Husky was interviewed and gave a whole bunch of tips on how to play this. Husky's a genius with Hella. He's probably the best Hella player in the world right now. This is Husky's Hella list. It's the best Hella list because Husky is the one who's playing it, kind of. This list is great. Husky is phenomenal at it. If you learn to play this list, this is, at worst, a top 3 to 5 list in Marvel Snap. And it is especially good in Conquest, where you play like Colleen, and if people aren't up on the meta, and a lot of Conquest players not up on the meta, a lot of the best players focus on ladder, then you are way, way, way ahead. All right. Our last deck of the day is Cam Worth's Rank 17 Thor's Tech. This list is fucking hilarious. Shadow King, Quake, Killmonger, Mobius, Red Guardian, Shang-Chi. It's running 6 tech cards. And then it's like, all right, what do we run that's not a tech card? We run Jeff, because Jeff is the best card in the game, I think. Maximus, who's the most stats you can get for 2, right? And you often play Ms. Marvel on 6, so Maximus and Ms. Marvel is a ton of power. A 14, which is the most stats you can get from a 4. A 4-12, which is about the most stats you can get. A 3-10, right? Like, this is like, and then Jane, which enables it and is powerful and undershrunk. This is so fucking good. Cam Worth basically took a one look at the giant stuff meta and went, okay, so, no, I'm not dealing with your bullshit. Let's do this instead. Sounds good to me, Mr. Worst. Huge props for this. The Killmonger is great because there's enough junk everywhere to be frustrating, right? But Killmonger says, no, thank you. I would like some space to play the game. Just love it. You love to see it. All right, so you can find Cam Worst at twitter.com/CamWorst. Yes, obviously the name is derivative of Cam Best. Cam Worst is still an awesome person. I like Cam Worst a lot. So Jeff is needed for this list. Jeff is needed for this meta. Professor X is a card. If you get one lane Professor X, having a last turn that could be Ms. Marvel and then Jeff is how you beat it. One of the ways you beat it. Enchantress or Rogue can be Red Guardian. That's actually just totally fine. You need Mobius and Beta Ray Bill. Ms. Marvel can be Omega Red. That is way worse. So there are now 2 Thor's decks in the top 20, so it's probably time to start taking these seriously. I've been... in my head, they've been about the same tier as Black Knight, which is to say good but not meta. Aoi is playing one at rank 4 right now, and this one's rank 17, and it's flown up to rank 17. Thor's might be real. It might be time to like seriously consider Thor's as a real package in Marvel Snap. Let me know what you think about that too. That's not for the giveaway, I guess, but like in addition to letting me know what your ranking of Sasquatch is, like a Sasquatch better than Nocturne, Sage, etc. Blink. I guess I don't actually care if it's better than Blink. Blink is a different thing because you have to pay money for a Blink, right? Is it a better spotlight investment to get Sasquatch than those other cards? Also, like, yeah, let me know how you feel about the Thor's thing, right? How's this going? All right, whatever. Turn 1 pass, you're perfectly fine. Jeff, you would really like to Jeff turn 2. You will Quake or Maximus as required on turn 2, but you would rather not. Turn 3, it's Thor or Mobius. Know the meta, know what people are playing. If you see for example, a Hood, right? Then you want Mobius down. You can also Red Guardian. Okay. Doing testing at work and it's kicking my ass. All right. You also would really, really like to play Red Guardian in certain situations where if you can get rid of a werewolf or something, then Red Guardian is worth it. Turn 4, Beta Ray Bill is almost always your priority over Ms. Marvel. Like 90% of the time, you would really like to get Beta Ray Bill out because Beta Ray Bill gets just big enough to be frustrating. And as a 4/6, even if you don't end up triggering him, he often can just win you the game. Turn 5 is Jane. If you have Jane, play Jane. If you've played either Thor. If not, you're just playing starting to play your tech. And then turn 6 is tech. And what I'd like to do, generally speaking, is play Ms. Marvel and Shadow King. Or Ms. Marvel and Jeff. However, sometimes it ends up being Shang-Chi in one of those cards. Sometimes it ends up being Shang and Quaker. You get the idea. Yes? You can also end up playing Red Guardian and Killmonger and just be perfectly fine. All good. Depends on what the deck is, depends on what the meta is, but if you're playing against Bounce, all of a sudden, that Killmonger's playing for like a 3-15 or something, right? More than that, jeez. You get the idea. Alright, hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully you play this deck if you have access to it. Questions of the day, then we out of here. It is really late. I did not know how late it was. Crap. Alright, Neil Basu asks how it feels to be a teacher with a visible social media presence. All of my adult teacher friends in the building know about this, and they think it's really cool, and they all wish they were doing something similar. They're all like, oh man, I should get on YouTube and try and do something. I talk for a living too. I don't think, like, admin and teachers I don't know have any idea. I don't have any idea if my current students know, but my last year students, like, fucking ton did. And they mostly think it's amusing and are happy I'm making extra money because they know teachers don't make the most. I don't know. I don't know how to say this without seeming like a jerk, but like you've watched this video for this long, right? I'm generally well liked in life. I try really hard to help people and be good to people, and I work really hard at everything I do, and so people are generally accepting of things I do. I'm also fairly passionate about things I like. If, again, doing a video 7 days a week didn't tell you that, I'm fairly passionate about things I like, and that passion is fairly contagious. I have exactly one student who plays Marvel Snap. He is free to play. He hits Infinite every season. I helped him prioritize what to open, when, and how. He's going to college. I don't want to say about college, but he's going to a really, really great, like, Ivy-ish college next year. So huge props. He is my one Marvel Snap current student, although I have former students that play Marvel Snap, and occasionally a friend from somewhere in my life will message me and be like, hey, you're on YouTube. I'm like, yes, I'm aware, thank you. Minotaur Burnout wants my opinion on the imbalance packages and what I'd like to see. What I'd like to see is them to be relatively light, but also to replace hot locations. The more I play, the more I hate hot locations. God, do I hate hot locations. This current hot location, Cancun, sucks. I hate it more than I can put into words. It's making me not play ladder on the last week of the only time I've ever tried to climb on ladder. It's miserable. It's absolutely miserable. I hope hot locations go away forever. I would much prefer some light imbalance patches like the previous two, which I could ignore, because all I want to do is just play the damn game and ignore the silly nonsense that are just like for casuals. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. Heretics Lee asks if I prefer spotlight caches be a set rotation or packages of cards. So set rotation being like X card comes back every 6 months, which has to be a little complicated because every 3 months or whatever, which has to be a little complicated, right? It can't just be that because the new cards would disrupt that flow. I think a somewhat set rotation would be beneficial where we know cards will come back within 3 months or so. But I think where possible, it is extremely, extremely helpful for the meta and for the game to release packages of cards and spotlights together. There was a point in January where they released 3 High Evolutionary cards together. They released Kyra with High Evolutionary and Nebula. And that's not a meta combination of cards, right? We've all played enough Marvel Snap, if you're watching this video, to probably know that's not a meta combination of cards. But all of a sudden, High Evolutionary got this big spike in play as new players were able to play and compete with a real deck that they were able to get from one series of Spotlight openings. That is so beneficial to the long-term health of the game. I think it's completely mind-boggling that they don't consistently and constantly do that, and I hope that they soon do. Leggett asks WWE or AEW or both. So I won't watch WWE. It's too shiny, it's too overproduced, it's not for me. The matches aren't good enough. I'm an old territory type fan. I did the in the early 2000s, so like later than many. I did the ECW arena stuff. I did some of the New York ECW shows. I did a bunch of early ROH. So like that's my kind of thing, that like grittier stuff. But I also like in the early 2000s did a bunch of Mid South and Memphis the like DVD VR collections. Wish I remembered the person who gave them to me his name now, or sold them to me, I guess. Sold name right now, but I don't. But I watched all that stuff, and that's like where my heart is. So when AEW was that, I was all about AEW. I literally went to Wembley this summer. I'm basically out on the company. It's Wednesday as of recording. I didn't even watch. It feels like WWE Light, and I don't have any interest in watching WWE, so I don't have any interest in watching WWE Light. I'll tune in for a great match when I hear one happens. But right now, I think I'm just out. I like AEW better. I could still watch AEW if I'm bored and nothing's going on, but when do I get to be bored? All right, if you'd like your questions read out in tomorrow's video, please leave some in the comments. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with honor, thanks, and my dear Patreon friends, I'm going to fly through this because I need to go to bed. Abigail Gieslin, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, This Is The Way, Inc., Jane Every, JD McDonaldino, Kier Tixley, Koire, Pyrophoros, The Goat Seeker, Denman Falcon, Doku, Ginger Prime, Philip Brakovich, Hablo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Beza, XOSV, and Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, who won Snap Judgments League Season 1, King of Bros, Black Dahlia, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Hey Ryan, Kev C. Hoda, Lunacris, Luian Tunes, Matsupri Models, Darth Taylor, Rema Satala, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrum X, Hoot, Matt H., Mikey Hedgings, No Flex, Ocularis, Craig Sterry, hey Craig, Pretty Frickin' Chill, Seamus, who's 3 days in a row on time, Two Ties, Deck Out Infinite, The Pirate King, Tuccrr, The Homie Min, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow. Peace. I got more decks for you. I got weekend mission decks for you. Get yourself ready. I'll see you tomorrow. Go win that season pass. Leave a comment. Bye.